Hey guys, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep dabbing on their hairs because and become a unicorn pup or a super Jeffy. You can become both if you want. And tonight we're going to be reading. It's not basically like a night. Because what time is it? It's like at 16:52. So basically still maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. So we're going to be reading this Rodal book together because I haven't actually read it before. Yeah, haven't read it before. So I want you guys to see the experience of reading The Twits with me by Rodal. Okay, so let's read the Twits. So the cat. Oh, this page is ripped, but look, you can see. I don't know why the page is ripped, but okay. So who the characters on the book is: Mr. Twit, Mrs. Twit, the roly-poly bird, the Muggle-Wump monkeys. Okay, sorry guys, but the Twits. I'm gonna be reading this, so I'm just showing you guys because I'm not gonna be able to show you guys every single one. And this is the bookmark we're gonna be using, just because I decided that we're just so. Chapter 1, Hairy Faces. And there you go. There's the picture of the book. Right, hairy faces. What a lot of hairy faces. Men there and are around nowadays. When a man grows hair all over his face, it's impossible to tell what he really looks like. Perhaps that's why he does it. He'd rather you didn't know. Then there's the problem of washing. When the very hairy ones wash their faces, it must be a big job, as when you and I wash the hair all on our heads. So what I want to know is this: how often do all these hairy-faced men wash their faces? Is it only once a week, like us on Sunday nights? And do they shampoo it? Do they use a hair dryer? Do they rub hair tonic in to stop their faces from going bald? Do they go to a barber to have their hairy faces cut and trimmed? Or do they do it themselves? In front of the bathroom mirror was a nail with nail scissors. I don't know, but next time you see a man with a hairy face, which will probably be as soon as you step up the street, maybe you will look at him more closely and start wondering about some of these things. Mr. Twit. Mr. Twit has one of these very hairy-faced men. The whole of his face, except for his forehead, his eyes and his nose, was covered with thick hair. The stuff even sprouted in revolting tuts out of the nostrils and ear holes. Mr. Twit felt that hairiness made him look terrifically wise and grand. But in truth, he was neither of these things. Mr. Twit was a twit. He was born a twit. And now, at the age of 60, he was a bigger twit than ever. The hair on Mr. Twit's face didn't grow smooth and matted as it does on most hairy-faced men. It grew in spikes that stuck out straight like bristles of nail brush. And how often did Mr. Twit wash his bristly, nail brushy face on his? The answer is never. Not even on Sundays. He didn't wash it for years. The answer is never. Not even on Sundays. He didn't wash it for years. Dirty Beards, Chapter 3. As you know, an ordinary unhairy face like yours or mine simply gets a bit smudgy. If it is not washed often enough, and there's nothing so awful about that, but a hairy face is a very different matter. These Things cling to hairs, especially food. Things like gravy go right in among the hairs and they stay there. You and I can wipe our smooth faces with a flannel and we quickly look more or less all right again. But the hairy man cannot do that. We can also, if we are very careful, eat our meals without spreading food all over our faces, but not so the hairy man. Watch carefully next time you see a hairy man eating his lunch, and you will notice that even if he opens his mouth very wide, and it is impossible for him to get a spoonful of beef stew or ice cream and chocolate sauce into it without leaving some of it on the hairs. Mr. Twit didn't even bother to open his mouth wide when he ate. As a result, and because he never washed, there was always hundreds of bits of old breakfast and lunches and suppers sticking to his hairs around his face. They were big bits, mind you, because he used to wipe those off the back of his hand or on his sleeve while he was eating. But if you looked closely, not that you'd ever want to, you would see tiny little specks of dried up scrambled eggs stuck to hairs, and spinach and tomato ketchup, and fish fingers, and minced chicken livers, and all the other disgusting things Mr. Twit would like to eat. And then, there you go. Tinned sardine, Stilton cheese, cornflakes. If you look closer still, hold your noses, ladies and gentlemen. If you peer deep into the moustache bristles sticking out all over his upper lip, you would probably see much larger objects than had escaped the wide of his hand. Things that had been there for months and months, like a piece of maggoty green cheese, or a mouldy old cornflake, or even the slimy tail of a tin sardine. Because of all this, Mr. Twit never went really hungry. By sticking out his tongue and curling it sideways to explore his hairy jungle around his mouth, he was always able to find a tasty morsel here and there to nibble on. What I am going to tell you is that Mr. Twit was a foul and smelly old man. He was also an extremely horrid old man, as you will find out in a moment. Mrs. Twit. Mrs. Twit. Mrs. was no better than her husband. She did not, of course, have a hairy face. It was a pity she didn't, because that would, at any rate, would make hidden some of her fearful ugliness. Take a look at her. Have you ever seen a woman with an uglier face than that? I doubt it. But the funny thing is that Mrs. Twit wasn't born ugly. She had quite a nice face when she was young. The ugliness had grown up upon her year by year as she got older. Why would that happen? I'll tell you why. If a person was ugly thoughts, it begins to show on the face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier until it gets so ugly you can hardly bear to look at it. A person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. You can have a wonky nose and a crooked mouth and a double chin and stick-out teeth. But if you have a good thoughts, they will shine out of your face like sunbeams, and you will always look lovely. Just so you didn't see the last one. Nothing shone out of Mrs. Twit's face. In her right hand she carried a walking stick. She used to tell people that this was because she had warts growing on the sole of her left foot and walking was painful. But the real reason she carried a stick was so that she could hit things with it. Things like dogs and cats and small children. And then there was the glass eye. Mrs. Twit had a glass eye that was always looking the other way. The glass eye. You can play lots of tricks with a glass eye because you can take it out and pop it back in again anytime you like. You can bet your life Mrs. Twit knew all the tricks. One morning she took out her glass eye and dropped into Mr. Twit's mug of beer. When he wasn't looking, Mr. Twit sat there drinking the beer slowly. The froth made a white ring on the hairs around his mouth. He wiped the white froth on his sleeve and wiped the sleeve on his trousers. "You're plotting something," Mrs. Twit said, keeping her back turned so that he couldn't see that she had taken out her glass eye. "Whenever you go all quiet like that, I know very well you're plotting something." Mrs. Twit was right. Mr. Twit was plotting away like mad. He was trying to think up a really nasty trick he could play on his wife that day. "You'd better be careful," Mrs. Twit said, "because when I see you starting to plot, I watch you like a wombat." "Oh, do shut up, you old hag," Mr. Twit said. He went on drinking his beer, and his evil mind kept working away on the latest horrid trick he was going to play on the old woman. Suddenly, as Mr. Twit tipped the last drop of beer down his throat, he caught a sight of Mrs. Twit's awful glass eye staring up at him from the bottom of the mug. It made him jump. "I told you I was watching you," crackled Mrs. Twit. "I've got eyes everywhere, so you'd better be careful." The Frog, page 12. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep tapping on them haters. And we'll be doing The Frog very, very soon. So, thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.